The hum of the fluorescent lights in the hotel ballroom was the first thing that got under my skin. Not because it was loud, but because it felt like a prelude to something I didn't want to hear. Olivia had practically dragged me to her company's annual gala. Mandatory networking, she'd called it, even though we'd both rather be home on the couch with Gus, our golden retriever. We're in our mid-30s, been married 8 years, and honestly, our Friday nights usually involve takeout and a documentary. This was different. She was buzzing, I could tell. Ever since she started at Sterling Solutions 3 years ago, her energy for work had ratcheted up, sometimes to a level that honestly left me feeling a little out of sync. Not bad, just a lot. Tonight, though, it was pure excitement. She was introducing me to everyone, beaming, holding my hand tighter than usual. Then we got to a small cluster near the open bar. "Ryan, this is Jason," she said, pulling me forward. "Jason, this is my husband, Ryan." Jason was exactly what you'd expect. Mid-40s, slicked back dark hair, a tie that probably cost more than my week's groceries. He extended a hand. Firm grip, practiced smile. "Jason Miller, great to finally meet you," he said, a little too smoothly. And then he looked at me, really looked at me, and added, "Olivia talks about you a lot. And Gus, of course." Happy, belated to the big guy, by the way. 7 years old, right? Hope he got plenty of those chewy salmon treats he loves. My blood ran cold. I remember thinking, what? My mind just stalled. Gus's birthday had been last Tuesday. A quiet affair, just us and a pupcake. Olivia had mentioned it to him. Why would she? She didn't even mention it to her own mother until after the fact, usually. But he knew the specific treats Gus liked. Those weren't just salmon treats. They were a very specific brand. From the specialty pet store Olivia always went to. The one an hour away. It wasn't something you'd just know unless you were intimately involved in the dog's life or the owner's. My wife's work husband knew our dog's birthday. And his favorite obscure, expensive treats. I managed some kind of mumble. Probably, yeah, thanks. Olivia, oblivious or pretending to be, just laughed. "Oh, Jason remembers everything about Gus. He's the best office dog, Uncle." Her arm was still looped through mine, but suddenly it felt like a tether, not an embrace. My smile felt frozen, plastered on. All the casual mentions of Jason said this, or Jason helped with that, over the past year, the late nights, the sudden work dinners that stretched into the night, they all just clicked into a horrifying new pattern. For months, maybe a year, I'd heard about Jason. Jason helped me fix that bug. Jason made a killer presentation. Jason stayed late with me on the Kestrel project. Always Jason. Always framed as a helpful, indispensable colleague. I'd mostly just shrugged it off, honestly. My own job as a software developer, it's intense. Long hours, too. I'd figured it was just how things were in her high-stakes consulting world, that kind of intense camaraderie. And Olivia, she's always been so transparent, or so I thought. We were a team, always. We talked about everything, or at least I thought we did. But standing there, watching Jason's eyes flick from Olivia to me, then back to Olivia with a warmth that was just a shade too familiar, too proprietary. It wasn't just a colleague. It wasn't even just a friend. It was like he had a deeper claim to her life, a thread running through it that I wasn't aware of, hadn't noticed. The way he knew about Gus's treats, not just the type, but that specific brand she always raved about. That's intimacy. That's details you share with someone you're building a life with, not just working beside. The whole room, the party chatter, the clinking glasses, it all faded into a dull roar. My gut clenched so hard it hurt. It felt like I'd been walking around with my eyes shut tight, and a blinding light had just been switched on, revealing everything I'd missed. And the first thing I saw was him, smiling, knowing my dog's birthday, knowing our dog's birthday. The damage, I realize now, was already done. That whole scene at the gala, Jason's words, hanging in the air like a bad smell, it really just pulled the rug out from under everything I thought I knew. Because before Sterling Solutions, before Jason, before all this, Olivia and I, we were good. We were us. We met about 10 years ago, maybe a little more, at a friend of a friend's party in Lincoln Park, Chicago. I was 24 trying to figure out if I wanted to stay in software or try something completely different. She was 23, fresh out of grad school, bright-eyed, already talking about changing the world with data analytics. I remember her standing near the kitchen island laughing at something our mutual friend Chloe had said. She had this incredible laugh, full and uninhibited, and her eyes crinkled at the corners. I was instantly drawn to her. We talked for hours that night about everything from our terrible college dorms to what kind of dog we'd get someday. It sounds cheesy, I know, but it really felt like we clicked, like two puzzle pieces just fitting into place. We spent that first year almost inseparable. Dinners at cheap BYOB places in Wicker Park, walking for miles along the lakefront, sometimes just sitting in my tiny apartment, listening to records and talking until 3 a.m. We just connected. She was brilliant, driven, but also incredibly kind and goofy. I loved that she could quote obscure philosophy one minute and then flawlessly imitate a cartoon character the next. I thought she was the most amazing woman I'd ever met. After a year and a half, we moved into a small place together, still in Wicker Park. And a few months after that, we got Gus. He was this scruffy, abandoned golden retriever mix from a local shelter, all gangly legs and anxious eyes. Olivia fell in love with him instantly. She named him Augustus, but we just called him Gus. He became our first real joint project, our fur baby, and our routine revolved around his walks, his feeding times, his endless need for belly rubs. Our wedding was low-key, just family and a few close friends at City Hall almost 8 years ago, followed by a casual reception at a gastropub we loved. It wasn't about the fanfare. It was about the commitment, about building a life together. And we did. For years, our life was pretty steady. We both had demanding jobs, but we always made time for each other. Sundays were for long walks with Gus, maybe brunch. Weeknights were for cooking together, watching terrible reality TV. Or me trying to teach her how to play my favorite video games, which usually ended in her laughing at my frustration. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. It was comfortable and safe, and I genuinely thought we had something special, something unbreakable. Things started to shift, not dramatically, but subtly, about 3 years ago when Olivia landed her role at Sterling Solutions. It was a huge step up for her, a consulting firm with big-name clients, the kind of place where you could really make an impact. She was thrilled, and I was genuinely proud of her. Her hours got longer, the travel increased. At first, it was exciting, a new challenge. She'd come home buzzing with ideas, sometimes exhausted, but always engaged. I'd try to meet her for dinner downtown sometimes, or just have a late meal ready for her when she got back from a client site. I'd always tried to be supportive, knowing how much her career meant to her. Then, maybe a year and a half ago, Jason's name started cropping up. Not a lot at first. Jason's really good with the client presentations, or Jason and I had to burn the midnight oil on the Kestrel account. It was always professional, always framed as a work thing. My brain, being the trusting, maybe naive thing it is, just filed it away as, Olivia has a competent colleague. Good for her. I was busy with my own projects too. Deadlines, coding sprints, the usual. I figured it was just part of the corporate grind, that intense team dynamic you get in those high-pressure environments. I'd experienced it myself, working closely with people for weeks on end, getting to know their quirks, their coffee orders, their general life updates. It felt normal. But looking back now, there were these little flickers, things I just brushed off. Like the time she started bringing home specific artisanal coffee beans. Jason introduced me to this amazing small batch roaster, or the way she'd sometimes just text him from the couch about a work thing, rather than waiting until the morning. I'd notice her phone screen light up with his name late at night, and she'd quickly turn it over. I'd tell myself, it's just work, they're on a big project, it's nothing. Or the increasingly frequent work dinners that stretched into drinks after dinner, and then just got home, so exhausted. There were times she'd come home smelling faintly of a cologne I didn't recognize, but I just think, must be someone at the office. She was probably just sitting next to them in a meeting. I just always found a way to rationalize it, to tell myself that there was nothing to worry about. We had a solid foundation. We had Gus. We had 8 years of marriage. I trusted her. And I thought that trust was enough to overcome anything. Now, standing there at that gala, realizing he knew about Gus's salmon treats, it felt like all those little flickers had ignited into a raging fire, and I'd been too blind, too trusting, too stupid to even see the smoke. After the gala, the whole drive home was silent. Not a comfortable silence, but the kind that hums with unspoken accusations. I kept replaying Jason's words in my head, the way Olivia had just laughed it off. Gus's birthday, the special treats. It felt like a sick, twisted joke. When we finally got back to our apartment in Logan Square, the moment we stepped through the door, I just needed to say something. Anything. So, office dog uncle, huh? I tried to keep my voice light, but it came out tight, strained. Olivia was already kicking off her heels, dropping her purse onto the entryway table. She glanced over her shoulder. What about it, Ryan? He's sweet. He loves Gus. What's the big deal? The big deal is he knows Gus's birthday, and he knows about those stupid salmon treats, the ones you drive an hour to get. You don't tell your coworkers that stuff, Olivia. You don't even tell my sister that kind of detail unless she asks. She scoffed a little too quickly. Ryan, don't be ridiculous. We spend a ton of time together at work. We talk about our lives. It came up. I probably mentioned it when I was talking about how hard it is to get those treats. Or when I was planning his little birthday thing. It's not some state secret. She was already walking into the living room, heading for the couch. Gus, who had been wagging his tail excitedly, seemed to sense the shift in the air and settled back onto his dog bed with a sigh. Is it just work, though? I followed her, my voice rising slightly. Because it feels like a lot more than just work. He calls you late. You go to work dinners that end up being midnight texts, and he knows details about our dog that feel intimate. It feels like he's in our life in a way a work husband shouldn't be. She finally turned, her face hardening. Are you accusing me of something, Ryan? Because if you are, just say it. Don't dance around it. I don't know what I'm accusing you of, I admitted, my shoulders slumping. I just know I'm uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. And I'm pretty sure I have a right to be. She sighed, a long, exasperated sound. Look, I get it. You're feeling insecure. It's fine. Jason and I are colleagues, very good colleagues, who work closely together. That's all. If you're going to make a big deal out of every detail, then maybe I just won't talk about work anymore. She grabbed her phone and started scrolling, effectively shutting down the conversation. I just stood there watching her, feeling a cold knot form in my stomach. She didn't deny anything concrete. She didn't reassure me. She just deflected and got defensive. And that was the first crack. The first time I felt that deep, chilling doubt. Over the next few months, it didn't get better. It just festered. The work dinners became more frequent. She'd always text to say she was going, but rarely would she say when she'd be home. And when she did come home, sometimes really late, she'd already be showered and in her pajamas, saying she'd done it at the office gym or a hotel if she'd been traveling. It just seemed efficient. Too efficient. Incident 1. The coffee cup. One Saturday morning, maybe 3 months after the gala, I was making coffee. Olivia was still asleep, a rare luxury for her. I was loading the dishwasher and noticed a travel mug I hadn't seen before sitting on the counter. It wasn't hers, didn't have her usual branding. It was sleek black with a small, discreet silver logo for a high-end coffee roaster that had just opened downtown. "Hey, whose mug is this?" I asked her later when she finally emerged. She froze for a split second, then recovered. "Oh, that's Jason's. He left it here last night after we were working on that presentation for the Miller account. I must have grabbed it by mistake when I was packing up my stuff." She smiled, a little too brightly. "I should probably take it back to him Monday." "He was here?" My voice was flat. "She told me she was working late at the office." "Yeah, just for an hour or so after dinner to finalize the deck." "Gus was asleep," she added quickly, almost as an afterthought. She avoided my eyes, busying herself with making toast. The apartment suddenly felt small. Jason was in, our apartment when I wasn't home, while I was maybe, I don't know, walking Gus or grocery shopping or just living my life. This was a new level of discomfort. My stomach churned. I didn't press it because I didn't even know how to press it without sounding like some paranoid freak. But I put the mug carefully into the back of the cupboard, out of sight. I wanted to smash it, honestly. Incident 2. Chloe's observation. I started confiding in Chloe, our mutual friend, who had actually introduced us. She's always been sharp, no nonsense. We met for drinks at a bar near my office one Tuesday. I tried to play it casual, but I could hear the desperation in my own voice as I laid out my concerns. The dog's birthday, the late nights, the coffee mug. Chloe listened patiently, swirling her gin and tonic. "Ryan, you know I love Liv. She's like a sister to me, but yeah, something's off." She paused, taking a sip. "A few weeks ago, I ran into her at the farmer's market on a Sunday. She wasn't alone. She was with Jason. They were laughing, picking out produce. She saw me, waved, and they just kept walking. She didn't even introduce him, just a quick, 'Hey!' and a weird little half smile. I figured she was busy, but then I thought, my jaw dropped. She was with him on a Sunday. She told me she had to catch up on work at a coffee shop that day. She was with him? And she didn't introduce you?" The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Sunday was our day. Our Gus day. Chloe just nodded slowly. I didn't want to say anything, because I thought maybe I was misreading it, you know? But they looked cozy, not just work colleagues. And the way she just kind of brushed past me, it felt weird. Her eyes met mine, full of genuine concern. "Ryan, you need to talk to her properly. This isn't just you being insecure. This is real." That conversation confirmed my worst fears. It wasn't just my imagination. Other people saw it too. My blind spots were getting smaller, but the picture they revealed was terrifying. Incident 3. The phone call. The tension in our apartment became palpable. We were like two strangers coexisting. I started checking her schedule more, subtly trying to confirm where she was. One evening, about a month after talking to Chloe, Olivia said she had to work late. Another late client pitch meeting. I was home with Gus, trying to focus on a new coding project, but my mind was racing. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was Olivia. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. "Hey yourself," she replied, her voice muffled, almost a whisper. "Just wanted to check in." Still at the office. Long night. "Yeah, I figured," I said, my heart sinking. "How's the pitch going?" "It's fine. Almost done. Just wanted to hear your voice." She sounded tired, distant. I could hear some low background noise, a kind of generic, muted chatter. Not quite office sounds. "Everything okay?" I asked, a knot forming in my gut. There was a pause, a really long pause, then she cleared her throat. Yeah, everything's great, just tired. Okay, gotta go, talk later." And she hung up. Not 5 minutes later, my own phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me... Hello? I said. Hey, Ryan, it's Kevin. Kevin Jenkins from accounting. We met at the Christmas party a couple years back, remember? It was one of Olivia's colleagues, a friendly, slightly awkward guy. Oh, hey, Kevin. Yeah, I remember. What's up? Nothing much, he said, sounding a little surprised I picked up. Just saw Olivia at the rail down on Wabash with Jason. They were just leaving, looked like they had a pretty long dinner. I figured you'd be with her, actually, or she'd be home. Everything okay? The Rail A fancy, expensive restaurant downtown, not the office, not a client pitch meeting. And she had just told me she was at the office. My stomach dropped out of my body. Yeah, Kevin. Everything's great, I lied, my voice shaking slightly. Just a miscommunication. I thought she was still at a client site. Thanks for the heads up. I hung up, my hand trembling. She had lied to me, directly, about where she was, about who she was with. My world tilted. The office gym showers, the grabbed the wrong mug, the catching up on work at a coffee shop. It all clicked into place, painted with a new, horrifying brush. It wasn't just me being insecure. It was a pattern of deception. The doubt wasn't just a seed anymore. It was a thorny, suffocating vine, choking out everything good in my life. The tension had escalated past the point of return. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground beneath me was crumbling away. That phone call from Kevin, it was like a punch to the gut that never really stopped hurting. I remember standing in our living room, the city lights reflecting faintly in the window, Gus nudging my hand, looking up at me with those big, trusting eyes. I felt sick, physically ill. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the back of the couch to steady myself. She'd lied. Straight up lied to my face. Not just a little white lie, but a direct, deliberate deception about where she was, about who she was with. My mind raced, flashing through all those little inconsistencies, all the times I'd rationalize things away. The coffee mug, Chloe's sighting at the farmer's market, the whispered phone calls. It all coalesced into something ugly and undeniable. I don't know how long I stood there. It felt like hours. But it was probably only 15 minutes. The sound of a key in the lock jolted me. Olivia. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to steady myself. I had to confront her. I had to. She walked in, looking tired but not distraught, her coat over her arm, heels clicking on the hardwood. Hey, babe, she said, a little too brightly, seeing me standing there. Still up? Thought you'd be asleep. She glanced at Gus, who was now wagging his tail, happy to see her. Rough night. Client was a nightmare, and the pitch went on forever. She started towards the bedroom, her back to me. Olivia, I said, my voice sounding distant even to myself. Where were you? She stopped, her hand on the doorknob. What? I told you. At the office. Client pitch. She didn't turn around. That's when I knew. Absolutely knew. Her posture, the slight stiffness in her shoulders, the way she didn't meet my eyes. No, I said, my voice gaining strength, though it still trembled. No, you weren't. You were at the rail with Jason. She slowly turned, her face expressionless at first. Then, a flicker of something, surprise, guilt, crossed her features, quickly replaced by a stony defensiveness. What are you talking about? Ryan, I was at the office. I told you. She took a step into the living room, trying to project an air of calm authority. Don't lie to me, Olivia, I said, my voice cracking slightly. Don't you dare lie to me. Kevin just called me. He saw you leaving the rail with Jason. I felt my eyes prickle, a hot wave of anger and sorrow washing over me. He asked if everything was okay because he thought I'd be with you. He saw you, Olivia, and you just told me you were at the office. The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes darted around the room, landing on the floor, on Gus. Anywhere but me. The silence in the apartment was deafening, punctuated only by the distant wail of a siren from Milwaukee Avenue. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a frantic drum against my ribs. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. My entire body felt like it was buzzing, like I was about to short circuit. "Ryan," she started, her voice barely a whisper. I can explain." "Can you?" I shot back, the words tumbling out. "Can you explain the coffee mug? Can you explain you and Jason at the farmer's market, laughing, ignoring Chloe? Can you explain him knowing Gus's birthday and his specific treats? Can you explain why you needed to lie to me about being at a restaurant with him when you told me you were at the office working on a client pitch?" My voice was rising now, filled with a raw, undeniable pain. "What is there to explain, Olivia? What is there to explain that doesn't make you look like a liar?" She finally looked at me, her eyes wide, tears starting to well up. It's not what you think. Jason and I, we just had dinner. We were talking about work. We do that sometimes." "Sometimes?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You whisper on the phone to me that you're at the office while you're at a fancy restaurant with him, and you call that sometimes? Why the lie, Olivia? If it's just work, why the elaborate lie? Why hide it?" She ran a hand through her hair, looking frantic. Because I knew you'd get like this. You'd jump to conclusions. I knew you wouldn't understand. We were just having a work dinner, a late meeting. It felt easier to just say I was at the office than to deal with your suspicions. The way she said suspicions made it sound like my fault. Like I was the one creating this problem. My suspicions? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You lie to me, and it's my fault for being suspicious? Olivia, you just got caught lying about being at a restaurant with another man. Your work husband, what am I supposed to think? My voice was shaking uncontrollably now. I felt like I was going to throw up. Every memory of our life together, every happy moment, was suddenly tainted, replayed through this new horrific filter. Was it all a lie? She burst into tears then, real, wrenching sobs. I didn't mean to, Ryan, I swear. It happened. What happened, Olivia? I demanded, desperate for a real answer, for any shred of honesty. What exactly happened? She sank onto the couch, her face buried in her hands. Gus, startled by the sudden shift in atmosphere, whined softly and retreated to his bed, watching us with worried eyes. The apartment was quiet again except for Olivia's muffled crying. I just stood there, staring at her. This woman I loved, this woman I had built a life with. And in that moment, she was a stranger. A stranger who had just shattered my entire world. I felt this intense pressure behind my eyes, but no tears came. Just a raw, gaping emptiness. I looked at the travel mug I'd put in the cupboard months ago, now a symbol of everything I'd ignored. I looked at Gus, innocent and confused. And then I looked at Olivia, sobbing on the couch, and a cold, hard resolve began to set in. I couldn't stay here tonight. I couldn't even breathe the same air. I had to get out. My immediate action was simply to remove myself from the suffocating presence of her betrayal, to find some air, somewhere, anywhere that wasn't poisoned by this moment. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, and my phone. That was it. I didn't even grab a change of clothes. I'm leaving, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, though inside I felt like I was being torn limb from limb. Olivia looked up, her face red and tear-streaked. Ryan, no, please, don't go. Let's talk about this. But there was nothing left to talk about, not right then. I just couldn't look at her. I opened the door, and as I stepped out, Gus whined softly behind me. That sound, his confusion, twisted the knife a little deeper. I drove aimlessly for a while, and the city lights a blur through my tear-filled eyes. Ended up parking near Lake Michigan, just staring out at the dark water. I called Chloe. It was almost midnight, but I knew she'd answer. She lied, Chloe, I choked out, the words thick with tears. About everything. Kevin saw them at a restaurant. Chloe was amazing. She didn't say, I told you so. She just listened, then immediately offered her spare bedroom. She lives about 20 minutes from our place, in Ukrainian Village. I went there, fell into bed, and just stared at the ceiling until dawn, the chaos in my mind mirroring the chaos she had unleashed. The next few weeks were a blur of practical problems and raw emotions. I stayed at Chloe's, working remotely from her kitchen table, trying to act normal on video calls, while my world imploded. Our apartment, our shared space, suddenly felt like a hostile territory. Olivia texted, then called, then emailed, pleading for me to come back to talk. I eventually agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop. Ryan, please, she said, her voice hoarse, her eyes still swollen. I'm so sorry. I messed up so badly. It was just a few dinners. Nothing physical happened. Not really. It was just talking. He just understood my work, my ambitions, and I felt seen. I know it sounds stupid. I know it's not an excuse. Not really. What does not really mean, Olivia? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Did you kiss him? Did you hold his hand? What exactly is the not really part? Because a few dinners and emotional intimacy and lying to your husband, that's already really something. That's already a betrayal. She looked away. We kissed. Once, just a moment after a really late dinner, and I regretted it immediately. It was a mistake. A terrible, awful mistake. I swear. She swore on everything. On Gus, on our history. I wanted to believe her, desperately. The old me, the trusting me, wanted to believe her. But the new me, the one standing on shattered ground, couldn't. The emotional intimacy, the lies, the secrecy, it felt like a deeper cut than a purely physical act. It felt like she had been building a separate life, a separate emotional world with him. The living situation became the immediate logistical nightmare. We had joint accounts, a mortgage. I couldn't just disappear. Chloe was great, but I couldn't impose on her indefinitely. I started looking for a temporary sublet, anything. My work suffered, my focus completely gone. My manager, David, noticed. I eventually had to tell him some vague version of personal issues and took a few days off. Our friends were split, of course. Chloe and a few others were firmly in my corner, offering support, food, a listening ear. Others, mutual friends, tried to mediate. Give her a chance, Ryan, our friend Kevin, not the one from accounting, a different one, said over the phone. People make mistakes. Maybe it's not what you think. His words, though well-intentioned, just made me furious. It's exactly what I think, I wanted to scream. She built a whole hidden life. My own family, my mom and sister, were heartbroken for me, but confused. Olivia seems so happy, my mom kept saying, which only added to my internal turmoil. Was I the problem? Had I missed something fundamental? A few weeks after the initial confrontation, during one of our tense phone calls about finances, Olivia dropped another bombshell. Jason's been let go, she said, her voice surprisingly flat. After everything came out, a few other people in the office put two and two together. HR got wind of it, apparently. They have a strict policy about inter-office relationships that affect client perception. Another discovery. This wasn't just a secret between us anymore. This was a workplace scandal. It didn't make me feel better, not really. It just added another layer of mess, another consequence of her actions, and a public one this time. The immediate chaos, though, was mine. The practicalities were overwhelming. The emotional whiplash of anger, despair, Fleeting hope, then back to cold rage. What worked? Frankly, nothing much. Just putting one foot in front of the other, existing, trying to figure out how to rebuild a life from scratch, when the blueprint you'd used for nearly a decade had just been set on fire. It's been almost 6 months since I walked out that door. I'm still at Chloe's, though I found a small apartment for myself starting next month. It's tiny, just a studio really, but it'll be mine. Olivia and I are in the middle of a very slow, very painful divorce process. It's amicable, as much as something like this can be. We're splitting things evenly. No real fight over finances or anything like that. The biggest casualty, the hardest part, is Gus. We've agreed on a shared custody arrangement, which sounds ridiculous for a dog, but it feels necessary. Every other week, he's with me. Every other week, he's with her. It's weird, and it breaks my heart a little every time I drop him off. What have I learned? God, so much. Mostly, I've learned that you can trust someone implicitly, build your entire world around them, and they can still shatter it. That doesn't mean trust is foolish, but it means you have to stay present, you have to pay attention, and you have to voice your concerns when they arise, even if they feel small or stupid. My biggest mistake wasn't trusting Olivia. It was ignoring my gut, ignoring the little alarm bells that were ringing for months. I rationalized everything because the alternative was too painful to contemplate. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, even when she was actively deceiving me. That's on me. This whole experience has made me incredibly wary of future relationships, to be honest. The idea of opening myself up to that kind of vulnerability again, to give someone that much power over my emotional well-being, it's terrifying. I want to believe I'll find love again, that I'll trust again. But right now, it feels like I'm walking on eggshells, even around platonic friendships. The impact on my career has been tough too. My focus isn't what it used to be. It's a struggle to just get through the workday sometimes. I just wanted to put this all out there, to get it off my chest. To anyone who's read this far, thank you. Thank you for listening, for giving me a space to lay all this out. It helps just to articulate it, to see it written down. I'm not looking for advice right now, not really, just to share. I guess the biggest open question for me is, how do you really heal from something like this? How do you rebuild trust, not just with another person, but with yourself? How do you forgive someone who broke you when the echoes of that betrayal still resonate through every single day? And how do you look at the person you loved, the person who made you laugh, and feel safe and reconcile that with the person who systematically lied to you? I don't have answers. Not yet. I just have the quiet hum of an empty apartment. And Gus's wagging tail when it's my week with him. A small, innocent comfort in a world that feels suddenly, irrevocably broken.